Hi, this is Mike making my video. Uh, basically I'm making this video and I'm talking about manifestation. But anyway, it's 4/26/2025 and it's 8:06 p.m. So I'm talking about manifestation and the dream state and basically different locales that we enter into during the dream state or even the waking state. Uh, you know, and of course the waking state in general. Uh, they're just manifestations of the human mind. You know, uh, I dream about things that I desire, people that I want to meet, places I want to go. People, places, and things. Um, and I see things that pique my interest, and they look realistic, but they're no different than generative AI. And what generative AI does, and I have a very sophisticated computer, and that generative AI produces realistic scenarios, simulations that I'm in, and these realistic simulations, are stitched together. They're JPEGs, and they're stitched together in such a manner that they give you the illusion of motion. And a lot of times you don't have any audible. They're almost like a silent movie. And I mean, you do have some, music background sometimes, and you do have, and a lot of times this music is original. It's stuff that, you know, that wasn't created by a man necessarily. It was created by yourself, and you know, so it begs the question, is that reality in your mind, and then what's the difference between that and the waking reality? And even like the waking reality, if you pay close attention to something in the still of the night or something, you're watching something, you can actually see that it has a bunch of frame rates. And like sometimes even like a scenario that you're involved in, you'll see there were frame rates involved. And it's almost, like it was generated by a computer. It was actually generated by a computer, but people are always looking outside themselves, saying, this computer, they're trying to imagine, what kind of computational power this computer has that's creating all this stuff. And they're saying it's coming from a different galaxy or a different world altogether. And it's creating all this stuff. And then a lot of times, people don't seem to realize it, though, that they're the alpha and the omega is the universe around us. But the universe is a reflection of us. Sometimes you might be thinking of something and it happens. Or you might be thinking of a particular woman and she shows up. Or you might be, having a question that's nagging at you all the time. And then that answer comes, in the form of a manifestation, or or a teacher will come by, a person might come by and give you that bit of knowledge. So you're like a collective soul, and you're constantly trying to figure things out. But yeah, I was convinced, and I've seen certain things happen and unfold, that they were generated by a computer. And I could actually see that the thing was traveling so fast, but it actually looked as if it was mechanical, like there were frame rates. And the thing itself wasn't mechanical, but the frame rates were such that I could actually see it. It was kind of disjointed. It's almost like you're playing a video game on a CPU that, like let's say for example, you have the original Xbox or the Xbox One, and then you're playing a game that was designed for the Xbox, uh, you know, the faster version of the Xbox, but you're playing a AAA game, and then you can see it's kind of disjointed, and that's because the CPU is kind of struggling in a sense to make up the frame rates. So it's obvious that it was basically generated by a computer. So you're the computer, and there was an instance also where I looked off to the right and I could see a hallway and I could see a door with a window in it, and I could see in the room, and then I turned my head just enough to where it was just outside my peripheral vision, but I could still see it, and it was just barely there, and then I could see a gray film cover the window, and as soon as I looked at the door, I turned my head more, I could actually see the film disappear, and then I could look in the room. So that's needless to say, that's really what that was, is computer CGI, and it's like the CPU is not using is running on an efficiency mode, and like your mind, you got the goggles on, and you got the MetaQuest goggles on built in your head, and you got the suit on that can feel, and of course you got other sensory inputs, and that's all they are, is electrical inputs into your brain. Your brain is surrounded by darkness, it's in your head, but the eyes give it basically the ability to see, and then of course your hearing and taste and touch and smell. So there was that, and then there was also other times where one time I had a dream about Pixar cartoons, and I woke up, and then I looked at my dog, and I see my dog, and she appeared like a Pixar cartoon. Like you could see she was kind of pixelated, and almost like she was created on a older version of a video game. And then, then she started to materialize, and it was only a second later, but it happened that fast that she completely manifested as a real dog. The only difference between like me now is, let's say I'm 4K or whatever, and then of course there are people that say they've experienced reality and they see more colors than, and this is myself too as well. I've seen reality where there are more colors. It's almost like there were twice as many colors, and it was looked like Easter all the time. I mean, everything was pastel colors, and they were beautiful, almost like Christmas. And it was a beautiful sunny day, but I couldn't believe how many colors were in the sky and air, and how many things were out there. And that's because my mind was operating at a higher level, and of course it was just demonstrating there were more colors, and these colors are always there. It's just a lot of people are not aware of it, and it's like we're playing this game, and I got the goggles on. So if you were to take the goggles off, things would roll up in your presence and disappear, which they have. And they disappear at my command just by thinking about it, and then they reappear. So I've had small things disappear and large things disappear. I've walked through walls. I've had walls disappear. I had ceilings disappear. I saw my other self, which is a very large version of me, but it's a parallel universe. And I exist in that universe. But, ultimately everything just exists on the inside of your head. It's like a mirror. When you see a reflection in a mirror, it's behind the mirror. It's not necessarily on the surface of the mirror. It's behind the mirror. And that's kind of like what the things are in my head. They're in my head, and they exist within myself. And that's like everything I look at, is all inside my head. So there's that, and then you have all this all these realities, and these things that happen, and they're supernatural. It's just your mind has to you have to have the belief in the vibration rate, and there's that, and then also you have to have where you sacrifice, you give up a lot, and you have to be in the poor in spirit, and in heaven's domain it belongs to you. So people are chasing after the spirit. They're going through great lengths, to find it. And they get the Queen of Heaven, and they get her, they try to chain her up and tie her down, and they try to keep her for themselves. And it's like, that's not really how you do it. It's a temporary thing. As soon as you grasp her, she slips through your fingers. And that's really ultimately what these enlightened states are all about. They're fleeting, and they don't last forever. What goes up must come down. But then you return to a base state, even like the hedonistic treadmill. You get to the point where you keep getting more and more and more. And then, of course, you're always buying more things to satiate that hole that you have in yourself. But, when you do that, you have a height, a jump in the scale, and you feel euphoric for a while, or happy. But then it always settles down to equilibrium, baseline. So, even like these euphoric states, you see miracles happen. And then eventually they go back down to a baseline. So, eventually what that turns into is almost like boredom. And being bored is kind of like another way of saying you're content. But it's like content might be a little bit higher than that. But it's just being happy with what you've got. It's being having gratitude and being thankful. And it's like you're not always grasping at things. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. But it's like you don't take more than you need necessarily, and you live a life that is simple. And eventually I'll be like the hermit, but right now I'm kind of playing the role of a teacher, and I'm trying to teach people from where I'm coming from. So yeah, when you have a TV in the olden days, in the 60s or whatever, you would turn it off and it would have a white dot, a white like a flashlight would be in the middle, and it would go like this, and it would shrink down to a little dot. And anyway, people say when they die, they have this tunnel, this light at the end of the tunnel, and they see that, and they enter into it. They approach it, and usually when you die, and that's what these near-death experiences explain a lot. When you die, you basically have that white light, and it's like a TV set. The white light is not, it doesn't hurt your eyes, and it's a very pure light, and it's almost like the phosphorus on the lens or on the screen. So you have a little TV set inside your head. It's the third eye. You have cones, you have rods, and you have the ability to watch these movies and stuff. Plato's Cave and the Bridal Chamber, and you have that, and then the white light, and that's really what it is. When the brain is dying, and when you're going through that, your brain emits this white light, and then it gives you all these things to comfort you, before you die. And then this white light, you enter into it. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm very convinced that's what it is. And your brain is an analog computer. It's not digital. And that's, like a TV, the old school TVs were like that. They had that white light. And anyway, that's all there is to that. It's not digital like a computer. And I've actually had it where I've seen code, and they say that this world is all code, and I've seen that before. I've looked at things and seen all kinds of coding on the side and underneath things. And that tells me that, we're a very sophisticated computer. It's like a heads-up display, So anyway, that's what that is. And it's actually not English, it's Greek. A bunch of mathematical formulas. So anyway.